trembling and bewildered. The women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. Now we do know that later in the day, Mary Magdalene told someone. Peter and John came running. John got there first and stopped, but Peter rushed right in. And they both got the answer that the Romans needed to hear. And they both got the answer that the Romans needed to hear. Who is this Jesus that we should die for him? He is the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of God, who died for you and rose again. Why should you die for him? Because he died for you. Because he gave everything for you. Because he wants you to take up your cross. Because he wants you to enter into his very pathway of life. Because he gave everything for you. You should give everything to him, because he will raise you from the dead, even as he was raised from the dead. Now at this point in time, something happens in Mark's gospel that never happened before. For the first time since the very beginning of the gospel, everybody's gone. There's nobody there. Jesus is not there. The disciples are not there. The crowds are not there. Pharisees are, Sadducees are not there. The Herodians are not there. Those who followed Jesus along with the disciples are not there. Nobody is there except us, the readers. And I believe it's Mark's intention as a writer to draw us right into that tomb and give us that same view that those women had. See that ledge, see that empty place, see where there was that body. It's gone. He's raised. He's not here anymore. If you take up your cross, if you follow him, if you are willing to die with him, if you are willing to die for him, you will be raised from the dead even as he was. And that's a question that's raised. Will you trust Jesus, he who died for you and rose again? You know, leaders, the bottom line of leadership is control. Will you give up control? Will you radically trust him no matter what it takes? Or do you have to stay in control? You know, the interesting thing is that in my imagination, I picture us in that tomb. And I see us looking at that ledge, looking at each other. He's gone. He's not here. He said he was going to rise from the dead. He must have done it. And imagine what it would be like if we were in that tomb. We turned around, and just as we started to go, the stone rolled back over the mouth of the grave. Let me out! Let me out! But that's the question. Will you trust him? Even if you're trapped in the grave? Will you trust him? But what would it be like if you suddenly saw, in your confusion, you realize there's luminous lettering on the back of this stone, and you see something like Luke 22:30, when Jesus said to his men, "You will sit on thrones." The very thing that they wanted is the very thing he's going to give them. They wanted in themselves out of the interests of man. They're going to get for themselves out of the interests of God. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. That grace of God. Or you're Peter, tend my sheep. Or you're Peter again in Acts chapter 2. But Peter taking his stand. He who took a seat among the soldiers and the crucifiers took a stand before the crucifiers. Why? Because of the cross. and because the Lord of the cross is the Lord of grace. And his grace transformed Peter. Now James, he had put to death. But many years later came the word, set apart for me Barnabas and Saul, that fire-breathing dragon whom I am going to use as one of the most strategic church planners in all of history. And John saying, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day in the Isle of Patmos. You know, my friends, if you will go into that grave, if you will take everything that matters to you, and if you will put it there, and if you will say to the Lord, all right, Lord, everything that matters to me is here. Raise what you will. If you will do that, He will use you in ways you never could imagine. I arrived at that very place. I arrived at that place when everything that mattered to me was gone, and I wasn't sure what my future was. I didn't see a future. I didn't know if I had a future, but I said to the Lord, all right, Lord, it's all dead. Raise what you want. And what He raised was an opportunity to teach these principles all over the world. I would have never dreamt of it. I never planned on it. I didn't create these opportunities. I didn't design it. He did it. You know, we start out wanting a crown, and Jesus offers us a cross. And if we say yes, the crown morphs into a cross. But then we see the cross morph into a grave, and then we see the grave become open. And then we see that open grave morph into yet a different crown. From the crown, the jeweled crown of power, to the garland, the crown of triumph. The kind of crown that we are going to take and throw at the feet of Jesus. And so we have the question, who is this Jesus that we should die for Him? And we have the answer. The Son of God who died for you and rose again. So now here's the question. Are you willing to trust Jesus with your core expectations, with everything that matters to you, with your identity, with your future, with your control? Are you willing to take your business and sign it over to Him? Are you willing to take your ministry and do what you thought you did? Release it to Him in a deeper way than ever. Think of that great verse in Ephesians 3:20. Now unto Him who is able to do exceeding abundantly beyond all that we can ask or think, according to that, what I would add, resurrection power that works within us. That's the power. And if you say yes, I'll tell you what else will happen. That stone rolls away. And we move toward deliverance from leaders' disease. And what is it? I've already said it. It's the cross. We're delivered from leaders' disease as we nail core expectations to the cross. So we become cross-broken leaders. So this is the question. The 7 realities of the altered heart lead us to the grave and to the decision to give everything to Him and let Him raise what He wants. And from that comes a radically transformed heart that takes all the knowledge and all the skills and suddenly begins to implement it and use it with power in ways we never ever thought possible. You know why? Because core expectations have been nailed to the cross. Because we've become cross-broken leaders.